Okay, in this part of the video, I wanted to show these wires. We got issues with the wires, and they're splitting really bad and falling apart. The insulation is totally deteriorating on the wires and falling off. I'll try to point out some that are more obvious than others, but you see this green wire here. Notice that. And this red wire, see that split that goes down the wire and it's broken in pieces? These green wires, the same thing. The insulation just falls right off of them. Because they're all deteriorated, those pieces are just falling out. See that one down there? See if I can get my camera to focus there. Right there. And you can see in through there. They're down there, the blue wire. And it's split. I've been looking through them and trying to like separate them so that they're not touching where they're flaking. And that's probably the best thing I can do. That black wire is pretty short there, but that's a common wire. And the wire underneath it seems okay. That blue wire under it. Yeah. Yeah, it looks okay. What happens is these red wires, those are your B+. Those are the rectified wires that come off the diode there, and they supply the high voltage. So I replaced two of them. I replaced that one and I replaced that long one there because they were too close to the chassis and deteriorating, or deteriorated. They're actually all pretty much deteriorated. And I've seen this before on another antique radio that I'm working on, that I have of my own, which I'm working on rewiring. But that's a big job, and there's so much time into this radio already. What I was hoping was, well, let me show you. Let me back up a little. What I'm thinking is, if these wires don't touch any other wires, there's not a problem. They won't move. They'll further deteriorate, but they won't move. And at some point, this radio should be rewired. But just like these bare capacitor leads, and these bare coil leads, and the resistor leads that are in there, they're all bare and they don't touch, so there's no problem. If they touch, and apparently they had at one time, but if they touch, they have a fuse. And that fuse, I'm going to stand the radio up, that fuse is this tube, which went out on me, so I replaced it. I had one in stock that I tested back in January. It's a 35Z5. The one that was in there went out. There has been some issues with the voltage. If you see that tube there, that's your power amplifier, not this front one, but the second one there. And you see those streaks going up and down. That tube tests really, really good. Those are the only two tubes I can test on this set. They happen to be newer tubes. These other 14 tubes are, and I can't test them. My tester won't do those 14 7, 14A7, 14Q7. I can't do those. But I can test these. And the tube that I put in here is a newer RCA. The one that was in there was a GE, I believe. So someone had replaced it before because there was a problem, because that's not an original tube to this set. And I think it's going to be okay, you know, playing it. Let me show you what we got going here. I'm going to turn it on. I got plugged it in. Let me get that light out of the way so you can see what's going on. I've repaired the speaker. Took me forever to get the dial working, but I got it working. And without a dial guide, it was really difficult. This wheel here is part of this plate, so you have to take that off, and when you take that off to get to this wheel, which has the main spring and all, you know, you don't have it connected. This wheel is not where it belongs, and the string keeps moving and falling off, so it's hard to get it exactly right. But let me see what we're drawing here. Okay, well, all right, we're drawing 17 watts, so there's no short. And there wasn't no short before the other tube let go that I know of, but it is possible that I moved the wire accidentally while working on the dial cord. So. And I got the speaker fixed. How long it'll last, I don't know. It's also all deteriorated, and you can see the sun discoloration. Well, I put a lot of silicone on all the cracks around there. I didn't dare put more than I needed to because I didn't want to cause more problems. Fortunately, there's none here, but there was a lot of cracks all the way around, and when I play in it, it would crack more. Well, now it's real flexible and it's doing good. Got plenty of volume. Plus, that station's really close to me. And I know this looks bad, but that was the only thing I could do. I don't have the original spring, but it's working. And it's drawing 17.6 watts, which is safe. It should be around 25, 30 watts max, so we're in good shape. Now,
breakfast favorite, another for just $1. Okay, so I'm ordering the chicken McGriddle.
Sensitivity's fine.
It would be astounding. America would be a force in the world again.
I'm gonna be a valid drink breakfast out.
It's hard to hold the phone and turn that slowly, but it's got good sensitivity. No antenna, it's just the internal antenna on it. The radio is really not, because of all the issues, it's not worth rewiring. It plays and it works. It's got sensitivity, and in the case it sounds a lot better. How long this dial system will work, I don't know. I mean, I did the best I can on it without any dial diagram. The way it was wired was, with the old dial cord, was wrong. It wasn't even correct, and it took me hours to figure it out. But you see where, let me get my light here, where these two cords go through those slots there and up there, and the slot up there and the slot down there. They had it coming from here right through there, so it was rubbing on the bottom slot, and it was rubbing on the bottom slot, the bottom of the slot up here, which of course was causing a big problem. And then they had it all, so they had it all wrapped wrong. It was not correct, and that's why the dial wouldn't work. Now I got it working, but I don't even know what length that dial cord is supposed to be. So, and it's, like I say, it's behind this metal plate, and to get to this wheel, to actually make this connection and everything, you got to do it and tie the knots. It's very tedious, time-consuming and tedious. To do that, you have to take this plate off to get to it. And when you take this plate off, it takes this wheel off with it because it's part of the same plate. And so when that comes off, then the string just unravels and pops all over the place. So you got to hold tension and try to get it. I mean, it was a job, but at least it's working. It's not rubbing. The tune is working fine. Sensitivity's good.
Same eyewitnesses.
It's recapped. It's got an alignment. So it's playing fine. What does it need? Well, it needs a few things. It could use some cleaning up. This could be painted and straightened out. This is okay, but it, could be replaced. But it needs a speaker. It needs all the wires replaced because they're all deteriorating. And, that's it. The tubes are working. It needs this amplifier tube. That's your output tube. It's not that hot. And these are not hot at all. The detector and all of those. So they're doing fine. But it is drawing current, 17.7 watts. And it's drawing 160 milliamps. So it's on it's not doing too bad, but it is drawing power, and it's working this rectifier tube, which I said is the fuse. If that got too hot or a short happened, that tube blows. And so that's what we got. And I'm about to put it back in the case. I'll make another video showing it in the case. And by the way, there's the wires I replaced on the top that go through the board. I replaced that one for sure. Even though it was falling apart, well, here's part of it. You see how it's just falling apart. See, just falling right off. See that? Even though it was doing that, it was just an antenna wire, so I really didn't care because that's no big deal. That's just a signal coming in. If it's a bare wire, it doesn't make no difference. However, where it goes through the chassis there, it is a deal, because if it bare metal touched the chassis, you'd lose the entire antenna signal, and there'd be no signal at all. This is the part of it that was left that went from here to here. It was nothing but a bare wire, which you can see in the earlier videos. It just all fell off. But it doesn't, like I said, that didn't matter. The wires underneath do matter. This wasn't soldered. Somebody had changed this transformer at one point, and they soldered that side. They didn't solder this side. They didn't use heat shrink. I wasn't going to tear it all apart because it's too close to the coil to play with, and I didn't know what they did, so I just soldered it, and it's fine just the way it is. I would have, had I had changed this myself, I would have left longer leads on the original one, and I would have put heat shrink, but it doesn't need it. Nobody's going to be sticking their hands anywhere in there, hopefully, or in the bottom of this. So I'm going to put it back in the cabinet, make one more video just showing it working, and call it a day on this one. I would suggest that to the owner that if you want to play it, you can play it. Worst that can happen, I wouldn't play it unsupervised. I wouldn't turn it on and leave the house. But as long as you're there, the worst that's likely going to happen is it'll blow that rectifier tube. And that's the way they were all designed. All the radios were designed so that the rectifier tube acts as a fuse. Because tubes were cheap and plentiful. Well, today tubes are not so cheap, and they're definitely not plentiful. So, blowing one up is not a good thing, but it is a common tube, a 35Z5, it is replaceable. So I think if that tube goes out, that's the time to decide, do I want to rewire this, or do I just want to give it an EOL, end of life, and put it on a shelf? The other reason I wouldn't go all out with rewiring it and everything right now is because even the case has been painted, and it just doesn't have the value to go beyond what I've done to it. and you know, recapping it, tuning, IF tuning, fixing the dial string so it'll work, fix the speaker, and they're just, I mean, this is okay, no guarantee on how it's going to last. It's working. That's all I can tell you. There's no dial code information anywhere online on this unit, and because the whoever worked on it last rerouted it wrong, they'd have been better off just to have left it alone, because then I could have, whoever, me or someone else who knew how to do dial codes, could have figured out just from the way it was laying how it should have went. And we could have figured out the actual length, but the length was cut. So the string that was in there is shorter than the new dial string I put in. This is the one that was in there, and it's too short. So I had to, for what I got going here. So they did what they could to get it to play, and you see how they stretched that spring way out. It wasn't even a spring anymore. Not that that's any better, but at least that's working. So, and wired correctly. I already replaced the tube one. I don't want to have to deal with that again. But that's partly, the tube was old, had been used, and there's no guarantee that I didn't short it, so I went ahead and changed it by moving the wires around, doing the dial cord. I had to keep turning it around and flipping it, putting my hands underneath. It's possible that I moved the wire. I also took it outside and blew out, with my compressor, blew out the all the dust and dirt out of that antenna housing and off the chassis. I blew the dust and dirt off the chassis, blew the dust out of the tuning condenser. So, you know, doing all of that, moving around, flipping it over, blowing it around, I might have caused the two wires to touch, which took out the rectifier. It would not have happened if I had it on my system, but I plugged it right into the wall outlet because it had been working fine, and I had it plugged into the wall outlet. And I will do that one more time before I say that it's okay the way it is to use. I'll put it in a case, I'll plug it in the outlet. If I blow out that tube, well, then we're just out of luck. The wires have to be changed to go further. So that's where we are. Thanks for watching. Okay, here we go. I got it back in the case. We're drawing 18 watts, 17.6, 17.4. Okay, so the wattage is dropping, and that's good, 17.1. Down to 16.9, 16.8. You can see it there. Stopped at 16.6. So when the current's dropping like that, that's good. The tubes are, now it's conducting, so it's coming back up. So we're at 19, 19.2. So now the radio should be playing. And there we go. We're settling off at around just under 19 watts. And that station's really close, but we'll jump by it. The station there. So it's trying to pull in some stations. There's one. Not bad, that's far away from me. It's got a really good sound. Not a lot of volume. But that amplifier tube is weak. It's been stressed. Well, so some of the other tubes are stressed too, but could be some resistors out of tolerance. I don't even want to think about trying to change resistors because the wires just wouldn't handle it.
The legitimate prerogatives of the executive branch. and that attempting to enforce this...
But doing pretty good there.
With the 13th pick in the 1990s.
Virus outbreak that's killed at least 81 people. More than 2,700 have been infected around the world, including 5 in the U.S. CBS's Ramy Inocencio says.
It's where North Georgia comes for news. It's WDUN News.
Good afternoon from the Access WDUN Hardy.
So it's picking up pretty good, actually.
The Hull County Jail.
Los Angeles to Italy, where he spent time as a child. At the Philadelphia High School, Brian.
Quote, could potentially undermine the president's constitutional authority
Good
to
sound.
consider and assert executive
A lot of bass
privilege
there.
where appropriate.
Staying right at 19 watts. So, that's about right. Okay, let me get it. Not a bad sound considering how bad that speaker was. Okay, I can't leave it there because of copyright. But that's what we got. Let's see if I can open the schematic here. Ah, there we go. Found it. There we are. The volume control, full on, line voltage 117 AC or DC, it's AC-DC radio, and the power consumption is 40 watts. So with the volume on, full volume at 117 volts, it should draw 40 watts of power. I'm drawing 20 watts of power on full voltage. Let's turn the volume all the way up, put it back on that station, and we'll see what we got. 117 volts, so let's kick that up to 117. Okay, there's 117. We're drawing 17 watts, so it's really efficient. Because they're saying 40 watts. Full volume. We're pulling in 19.3 watts. Which means some of the resistors are definitely out of tolerance. And I thought so. I thought I was measuring 85 volts. And it should be like 100 volts or 98 or 97 or 95, somewhere around there on the plates of the amplifier. Okay, one more test we got to do is get this up to mains and hope it can deal with it. So let's try it on here first. My mains is around 121. So we'll kick this up. Okay, we're at 127. 22 watts, 170 milliamps. Not bad for 126 volts AC. So I'm going to bring it down. Shut it off. And I'm going to plug it into my mains and we'll see what happens. Okay, that's running on my mains. And still doing great.
For Israeli settlements, they are hoping for international
Picking up some interference.
exactly what the...
For nothing, get your check.
So, it's working good. So, there you have it. It's working fine. Drawing less current than in peak. So the capacitor sure made a difference in power consumption. Like I said, it's still got some bad resistors. It has one tube. The amplifier tube could use some attention, but it's working. The speaker could be replaced. Wires definitely need to be replaced. You know, but it is what it is, and it's at least working and playing, and the dial's working correctly as best I can get it. And there you go. So I want to thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe and like if you haven't already, and that helps me keep these videos going. Appreciate it.